Welcome guys to another hotspot analysis. Last time we did reckless rail race, and you guessed it, this time we're going to Snooty Steppes. I noticed, while there's an insane amount of guides about weapons, loadouts, and how to win games, it seems like no YouTuber is really taking apart the map at all. I come from a different VR where I was rank 1EU on eliminations, wins, and total for years. Recently switched to Fortnite, and with chapter 5 made it my goal to become the best together with you guys. For that, I'm analyzing everything about the game. I went through all the weapons so far in depth, and now I'm going over the map. This is episode 2 of the series and probably the most complicated spot on the map. Snooty Steppes. I chose this spot because it's an absolute maze and I wanted to see if I can bring clarity over this spot and took it as a challenge. I'm going to be doing this by first splitting the map into different areas, second going through these areas in detail, third show all car and loot spawns, fourth showing the drop spots and drop rotations, and finally fifth we are gonna talk strategy, meaning important angles, rotations, and how to play Snooty Steppes. First up, let's split up the city that we will then analyze in the next point. First up, the 4 buildings to the left here, including the street that goes out of Snooty, we will be calling the west side. The center plaza, we'll just call the plaza. It is smaller than the one in Reckless, however, there's actually way more happening. The right side right next to it will be called east side because it's in the east. And we will just call the part above the high ground. Next up, super important, we will also count this as part of Snooty Steppes because it really is. And that is the train station, including the tunnel that leads straight into the high ground. And lastly, the most important point of all of Snooty Steppes, the boss area. I really thought about doing this in a different way. At the start, I thought I'm gonna do this in levels, starting at sea level and then going up the high grounds because this city really is very vertical. However, I think it makes more sense to do it this way because in general, if you drop at one of these positions, this is how you will be looting and playing these areas. So while yes, just visually it would make sense to separate this into different height levels, gameplay wise this made more sense. Okay, let's get into the actual areas and we will be starting with the west side. First up, let's take a look at loot. You would see that these 5 buildings don't have many chest spawns. They have pretty much 2 for each building. The buildings however are pretty small, and on the other side there is a lot of ground loot in this area. And apart from this beautiful Peter Griffin statue right here, that's quite something. There is a sewer right next to it that connects all the way to the other side, to the east side right here, which is of course way faster than traveling in any other way. Crossing within the west side is actually way easier than it first looks like because we have these zip lines everywhere. We get one from the TSK moment. We got one from the Peter Griffin statue building right next to this one here. But this one also reaches over to the other one of the west side that can, by the way, have a mythical chest. The same goes from the one above all the way back to this building, which is the one right next to the one with the Peter Griffin statue, guys. Another thing you need to know is that these buildings themselves also function as stairs, which can be said for the rest of Snooty Steppes as well. For example, this building, you go down there, walk your way up through the stairs, and you will make it to the boss area over this bridge here, which is of course super useful for later in the rotation. If you make your way down all the way here to the street, you will find another sewer, and just like the other one, this brings you all the way to the other side of the map, even to the high ground this time, right here to this little purple sewer. Super useful for crossing the city, super useful, especially if you get caught, for example, by an enemy and you want to run away. This is the way to go, either up there with this sewer that I just showed you, or the first one right down here. Next up, we have the plaza, and this is an area you mainly want to avoid. Yes, we do have a vending machine here, we do have a reboot van here, and a bounty bot, so there definitely is reasons to go down here. However, I cannot recommend ever going there while there's still people in the city, as everybody anywhere in any building or on top of any building has perfect view over you. Yes, there's more cover here than in Reckless Railways because there is an actual building. However, try to avoid this spot. Don't even rest here, go somewhere else if you have to. If you're ever down here resing your teammate because you thought you were safe and then actually get surprised by someone, there's a couple nice ways out. You can climb this wall here with 2 jumps, which is pretty cool. You can take the zip line to get all the way up here. You can use the little tunnel to either hide in the building or go even further beyond it. And lastly, you can go behind cover here and get back up the stairs all the way up to Peter Griffin, or you can take a car. And the last one is, of course, again, our little sewer here. And yeah, that is pretty much all you need to know about the plaza. Next up, the east side. In these two absolutely beautiful cuts I made for you here, you can see that this area actually has a lot of chests and a lot of ground loot spawns. Makes sense since the buildings are pretty large. Let's keep it in mind when we talk about drop spots later. We are starting right down here at the sewer. You guys already know exactly where it leads to. Looking at you over there, Peter Griffin. On the other side, you have zip lines that reach up all the way on top of the mountain here. After zipping up here, you will walk over here to the next zip line, zip all the way up, and you are at the high ground. And yeah, the main part of the east side is this double building right here, which has a lot of loot. And also again, function as stairs all the way to the high ground to the next building, which leads to the actual high ground right above that. And also again, don't forget to always loot the balconies, as they will often have chests. Another thing, just like on the west side, if you get on top of the roofs, you can use the zip lines to keep walking over all the buildings, which will literally lead, by the way, all the way to Peter Griffin over here. But I'm going to be talking about this later when I talk about rotations in the strategy aspect of the video. Next up, the high ground. It will be these two buildings as well as the other building back there on the high ground as well. And guys, as you will see on these two sheets, the loot here is honestly insane. It is the most densely chested. Is that a word? Probably not. That's the most that's the most chests in all of Snooty Steppes in these two big buildings. The ground loot is also absolutely insane. Again, 100% make sure you loot the balconies. As you can see, there's chests here, there's a chest back there. Make sure you always look at the balconies, guys. Also, right in front of this building to the right here, we have the sewer. And you guys already know it leads down there to the streets of West Side. And as always, these buildings are super interconnected through multiple various ways. Most notably, again, all the zip lines. But you also have a little bridge over here, which is really cool. I mean, like this area here. And yeah, a lot of different ways to traverse this area. It is a maze, to be honest. But looting doesn't feel very difficult here, as you just looted like any other building ever as well. There's some cool ways to get on the high ground, again, with these little steps that we have over and over this season. Might as well just jump on this little thing to jump up, by the way. That's way easier. Getting exactly on this building is actually super important, as this is the best way to get over to Peter Griffin, that we will talk about 100% later as well, by the way. We are not gonna be using this zip line ever here. This zip line, like, this kills you all the time. The building to the right here, you kind of never want to drop here. The loot is not very good, and it is a little bit further away from everything else. Of course, we have a zip line again to get to the big building. So if everything else is super stacked, which, to be honest, often is the case here if you drop Snooty Steppes, maybe this is the building to go for you. It also pretty much always has a car spawn, but we'll talk about car spawns, of course, later. Next up, the train station. This is actually the second most important POI of all of Snooty Steppes and my personal favorite drop. Of course, talking about why later it drops. Guys, this building comes with some barrels, a couple loot spawns, of course. Not that many though. However, the train station is right next to the tunnel that leads to the high ground, and this tunnel actually has plenty of loot and plenty of barrels, which guarantees you getting almost full HP every time you push this way. You will arrive in Snooty Steppes pretty geared and again super healthy. Yeah, not much more to say about this, so let's move on. Our last area will be Peter Griffin's lair, that we will call the boss area. Of course, this is where you find Peter Griffin and the hammer pump shorty, the mystical of course, also his medallion, and down below, of course, the vault. For this one, I'm actually gonna hop in the game and walk you right through it. When you go inside, you will quickly see that just as the rest of Snooty Steppes, the boss area has many levels. Good news is though that you can reach all of them with the stairs. You can make your way all the way through the roof. There is a lot, and I mean a lot, of chests and ground loot in Peter's lair here. There is a few things to say, but in general, of course, it's just basic looting. Not much I need to tell you here. However, there is one room that has plenty of food on the base level where you usually find Peter Griffin, meaning if you need heal, you can go right here. And also down below, one level above the vault, you will find a bunch of barrels, also super useful. The main way to go to the boss area is either taking these stairs right here on the west side, the zip line down here, which again I cannot recommend at all. Everybody will see you coming easily. This is not good. And the best way of all of them is to get up on this building and take this zip line to get on the roof. This means you will be on the high ground, which is of course pretty good to have. Easiest way to get up on this building is if you come from this side, take this little brother, how is this called in English? I wouldn't even know how to call this in German, guys. Let me know in the comments. You jump up here, you climb up here, then you take the zip, and boom, there you go. Okay, wow. The area section of the video always takes the longest, but is of course the most interesting part. However, let's talk car spawns. And afterwards, actually the most important part, drops. And I will go way more in detail than last time, because one of you guys made a really good comment telling me to compare drop spots for duos, solos, and squads. And I think that's a great idea. But again, first, cars. Our first car spawn is right where we left out. Blah. Speak hard. TFK moment. Our first spot is right where we left off at Peter Griffin's lair. The next one is down here at the streets of the west side, right next to the sewers. And the last one is back on the high ground, which I told you guys about earlier already. Next up, drops. Okay guys, for this one we first up have to zoom out all the way. And then next we'll switch to the loot map. Okay, let's begin with solos. On paper you can of course drop anywhere. So I want to split it into slow starts, medium starts, and hot drops. And since Snooty Steppes can get very chaotic, the only spot I can really recommend as a slow drop is the west side, and more precisely these 3 buildings here of the west side. While the third building right here can be a little bit too close to the plaza and the high ground, as well as on the other side to the boss area. So if you want to drop slow, I cannot recommend this building. Another slow start will be over here at this building in the high ground. It is far enough away from everything else, and you will usually not get into a fight here. The last slow drop will be the train station right here and the tunnel. Yeah, I'm usually completely alone if I drop here, and yeah, you have a free pass towards the high ground and the main part of Snooty Steppes. The next up, medium drops will be down here at the east side. All these buildings, you will usually get some fights and at least are close enough to danger to really call this a medium drop. I would put this building from the west side in that area as well. And then lastly, we have the hot drops. I will call the plaza a hot drop, mainly just because everybody else from all the other hot drops and non-hot drops will have angles on you. These 2 buildings from the high ground are 100% super hot, as well as the boss area with Peter Griffin here. So again, if you want a slow drop, either drop down here, over here at the high ground, or at the train station. Medium drops, east side and this building of the west side. Hot drops, high ground or Peter Griffin. Okay, solos versus duos versus squads here. Starting with duos, I can no longer recommend dropping on the train station, as it has just too little loot for many people. We got 2 chest spawns over here, 2 chest spawns in the tunnel. Same with the building on the high ground right here. Starting in duos, no longer good enough. Same with the plaza, but guys, to be honest, never drop plaza. Also not in solos. That leaves us with the only slow starting area being the west side here, and nothing changed for the medium and hot drops, since a lot of loot is usually what attracts people. So this makes sense right here. And then for squads, I can no longer recommend dropping east side or this little building in the west side, as well as the rest of west side. There's simply not enough loot, so you are stuck with the 2 hot drops. Either drop straight on Peter Griffin himself or go to these 2 buildings on the high ground if you're playing squads. My personal favorite drop when I actually play solos is the train station. I will drop down right here, loot my way through the tunnel, reach the high ground right here, and as I kept saying, you will go on top of this building here. You will find the zip line that brings you right here to the high ground on the boss area. You will deal with the enemies or Peter right here, go down into the vault, and you will be a happy gamer. Lastly, let's talk strategy. I just explained my drop rotation, which is pretty much how I would recommend playing this early game in Snooty Steppes. Of course, if you like to drop on any of the other drop spots, play it the same way regardless. Play your way from the ground to the roofs and make your way to the boss area. Defeat all enemies and get yourself kitted in the vault before you go to one of the 3 car spawns and grab a car to move on into the game. To be honest, since Snooty Steppes is so far away from the center of the map, it is very rare that you get either mid or late game fights in Snooty. However, I had an end zone exactly 1 time over here, and it was absolutely crucial to stay within the buildings, because if you don't, the other people that are in the buildings will take you apart. Okay, this was a lot of work, but it felt super satisfying to dive deep into Snooty Steppes. If you appreciate the efforts that I put into this video, enjoyed watching it, or best case want to see my future guides on everything Fortnite, like and subscribe. I am still a very small channel, and it honestly is my dream to change that, which is why I try my absolute hardest to make the best possible content for you guys, and I hope it shows at least a bit. So yeah, let me know guys, what spot should I analyze next? I feel like after getting through Snooty Steppes, everything else will definitely also be possible. Is there anything else you want me to cover in these? Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. With zipped up, I can't speak. You will zip up here, walk over here, and zip all the way up top. If you want to retry,